Black Ops 6 is a first-person shooter that continues the series' tradition of high-energy action, featuring an exciting campaign and a competitive multiplayer mode. The gunplay is as satisfying as ever, and the graphics are top-notch, really bringing the battlefield to life. The campaign has some great set pieces, but the story doesn't really stand out and feels kind of predictable. Multiplayer is fun with a good mix of maps and weapons, but I did feel like it plays it a bit safe without introducing anything too new. Even with these issues, it's a solid shooter that fans of the series will enjoy. It's one of those games that's easy to pick up but hard to put down.
Think.
I think I got this.
So I finally got around to playing Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and I was blown away by how much fun it is. The world is absolutely gorgeous, exploring it is a real treat. Combat is super engaging.
Let's finish this.
Switching between characters pulling off these awesome combos makes every fight exciting. The story is captivating too. Seeing these familiar characters again with some new twists is just fantastic. They really captured the magic of the original while adding their own spin, which is really cool. Even the side quests are enjoyable. They actually add to the world and the story instead of just being boring filler. Now, it's not perfect, of course. I did have a couple of minor issues. The camera can be a little wonky sometimes, especially in close quarters, and I did run into a few little glitches here and there. Plus, some of the dialogue can be a bit cheesy at times. But honestly, even with those small problems, I thoroughly enjoyed Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. It's a fantastic game, and I would definitely recommend it to any fan of RPGs or anyone just looking for a really fun adventure.
Bring it!
Watch out! On it!
Dragon Ball Sparking Zero is an action-packed fighting game that takes you right into the explosive battles of the Dragon Ball universe with incredible visuals, fast-paced combat, and a massive roster of characters. And what's really fun is how you can pull off all those flashy special moves and transformations just like in the anime. But while the battles are intense and the destructible environments look great, the controls can feel a bit clunky at times, especially when trying to pull off complex combos. And the story mode feels a bit too familiar if you've played other Dragon Ball games, but if you're a fan of the series, you're definitely going to have a blast with this one. I recently played Astrobot, and it's such a charming and fun platformer where you play as Astrobot on a mission to rescue his crew who are scattered across different planets. It's a really joyful game, and it's full of creative level designs and clever gameplay mechanics. The platforming is super tight and responsive. It feels so good to run, jump, and hover around these colorful worlds. I loved collecting all the little Astrobots. They're hidden everywhere, and finding them is a big part of the fun. The game looks fantastic too. It's bright and cheerful, and it really makes great use of the PlayStation features. Honestly, it's hard to find anything I didn't like about this game. Maybe if I had to nitpick, I'd say it's a little on the short side, but it's so consistently enjoyable that it doesn't really matter. It's a perfect game for anyone who loves platformers or just wants a lighthearted and fun experience. Banisher's Ghost of New Eden is an action-adventure game that mixes ghost hunting with a powerful story about love and sacrifice, and it does a great job of making you feel emotionally connected to the characters. The narrative is really well done, with choices that matter and affect how the story unfolds. The combat is engaging, but it can feel a bit repetitive after a while, which takes away some excitement. However, the atmosphere and visuals are fantastic, creating a haunting and beautiful world. If you're into emotional stories with action, this one's worth a try.
Get some! Get some!
Helldivers 2 is a co-op tactical shooter that challenges you and your friends to survive intense battles against alien enemies on different planets. The game's strategic elements, like managing friendly fire and coordinating attacks, really make it stand out. The chaotic combat and emphasis on teamwork are great. Though I did find some of the missions to be a bit too similar. And the difficulty could be quite punishing at times. Even with these issues, it's still a fun game if you're into cooperative shooters that require good communication and strategy. It's the type of game that feels incredibly rewarding when you finally beat a tough mission. Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth is a turn-based RPG that follows a powerful story with lots of emotional twists and a good dose of humor. The storytelling is fantastic, with characters that are so well written and funny that you can't help but get attached to them. The combat system is strategic and satisfying, though some battles feel like they drag on a bit too much, which breaks the flow. But the mini-games and side activities are so creative and fun that they make up for it, giving you plenty to do outside of the main quests. If you're into RPGs with a lot of heart and humor, it's definitely worth a try. Marvel Rivals is an action-packed fighting game where you get to play as your favorite Marvel heroes and villains, battling it out in fast-paced, one-on-one fights with cool combos and special abilities. The gameplay is super fun, and the graphics are stunning, making each fight look like a scene straight out of a Marvel movie.
I'll take a shield, sure.
I really enjoyed how each character feels different, and there are so many moves to learn. The only downside is that the story mode is a bit short, and the multiplayer could be better balanced. Even with these small issues, it's a great game to play with friends or solo. It's just one of those games that keeps you coming back for more.
That's 3! Wow, 4 in a row! 5!
So good to see you again. You lost consciousness after awakening to your power.
Persona 3 Reload is a remake of the classic JRPG that mixes dungeon crawling with social simulation, letting you balance fighting shadows at night and building relationships during the day. The updated graphics look fantastic and the combat feels smoother with some nice quality of life improvements. I loved revisiting the story, which is still one of the best in the series, full of emotional moments and deep character development. But I was a bit disappointed that some content from the original versions was left out, like certain side stories. Still, if you're into JRPGs with a great story and strategic combat, it's definitely worth playing. So I finally got around to playing Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown last month, and honestly, this game surprised me with how good it is. The combat is super smooth and satisfying, like you really feel every hit, and the platforming is so much fun. Zipping around the world feels great. Exploring the different areas is a treat. They're all so well designed, and the story, while not groundbreaking, is actually pretty engaging. I found myself wanting to know what happened next. Although the game is not perfect, I did run into a few minor glitches here and there. Nothing game-breaking, but a little annoying, and the boss fights, while cool, could be a bit repetitive sometimes. But overall, this game is a fantastic experience. If you're looking for a fun action-adventure game with great combat and exploration, you should definitely check it out. If you're enjoying the video and want to support a growing channel, then please do subscribe and hit the bell icon. Silent Hill 2 Remake is a survival horror game that reimagines the classic with stunning graphics and a haunting atmosphere. It stays true to the original story, which is one of the best in horror gaming. I loved how they kept the creepy vibe while updating the visuals to look more realistic. The sound design is fantastic, making every moment feel tense and unsettling. The puzzles are well designed and add to the mystery. My only complaint is that the combat still feels stiff and a bit outdated. But overall, it's a great remake that fans of the series will really appreciate. It's definitely worth playing if you want a chilling experience. Tekken 8 is the latest fighting game in the long-running series, delivering intense one-on-one battles with stunning visuals and a refined combat system. I was really impressed with how fluid and responsive the controls are, making each fight feel fast and satisfying, and the new gameplay mechanics add more depth without being too complicated. The character selection is fantastic, mixing returning favorites with some interesting newcomers, each with unique fighting styles. However, I did feel that the story mode was a bit short and could have been more engaging, but the multiplayer is where this game truly shines, offering a competitive and fun experience. Space Marine 2 is all about brutal third-person combat where you play as a Space Marine fighting hordes of Tyranids. It's a non-stop action game, and it really captures that feeling of being an unstoppable force of nature. The combat is visceral and satisfying. You can chain together melee attacks and ranged weapons, and it all feels really impactful. I loved the variety of weapons and abilities. There's a lot of different ways to customize your playstyle. The game looks great too, the graphics are really impressive, and the environments are detailed. It can get a little repetitive at times. You are fighting a lot of the same enemies over and over again, and sometimes the story missions can feel a little bit linear. But if you're looking for a game where you can just unleash a ton of firepower and smash some bugs, then you'll probably have a good time with this one. It's definitely a fun and action-packed experience. I gave Stellar Blade a try recently, and as an action RPG, it really shines with its fast-paced combat and gorgeous futuristic world. The gameplay is smooth, and pulling off combos feels great, especially against the challenging bosses that keep you on your toes. The visuals are top-notch, making every fight and every location look amazing. But I did feel like the story was pretty basic, and the characters weren't all that interesting, which was a bit of a letdown. Even with that, the combat and graphics are so well done that it's still a fun experience. It's definitely a solid pick for anyone who loves action-packed games with stunning visuals. If you're looking for exciting combat, this game nails it.
Let's get this over with.
Unicorn Overlord is a tactical RPG that mixes strategy and fantasy storytelling, and it does a really good job of making you feel like you're leading an army in this magical world.
Be safe.
The art style is beautiful, and the battles are pretty fun, especially with the different units you can use. I really like the mix of turn-based combat and the story choices that change how things play out. However, some parts feel a bit slow, and it takes a while to really get into the flow of the game. Still, if you enjoy tactical RPGs with a rich story, it's definitely worth playing.
Pretty good, huh?
Stalker 2 is this gritty survival game where you explore the Chernobyl exclusion zone, and it's a pretty intense experience. It's an open world and it's full of dangers from mutated creatures to rival factions, and the atmosphere is just incredible. It's so creepy and immersive. I loved exploring the zone, discovering hidden stashes and uncovering the secrets of what happened there. The shooting mechanics are solid, and the survival elements, like managing your resources, add a lot to the tension. It can be a tough game, though. The zone is a dangerous place, and you'll die a lot. And sometimes, the game can be a bit buggy. But if you're looking for a challenging and atmospheric survival game, then I definitely recommend it. It's a really unique experience. Senua's Saga Hellblade 2 is a dark and intense action game where you play as Senua, a warrior who's battling her own mental health struggles while fighting to save her people. It's a really immersive experience, and the visuals are absolutely stunning. They're so realistic and detailed. The combat is brutal and visceral. It feels very weighty and impactful. I love the way they incorporated Senua's mental state into the gameplay. The voices in her head and the visual hallucinations really add to the atmosphere.
What have you done? Stop.
It's a very emotional game, and it deals with some heavy themes. If I had to mention anything negative, it's that the game can be quite short, and some might find the combat a little repetitive. But overall, it's a powerful and unforgettable experience. It's a game that stays with you long after you've finished it. Rise of the Ronin drops you into a really vibrant historical Japan, and it's a huge open-world action experience. The combat is just fantastic. You can switch between different sword styles so easily, and it looks amazing. Though the story can feel a bit cluttered, like it's trying to cram too much in. Exploring the world is a blast, but some of the side quests are a bit repetitive. Still, when you're in a big fight and you're pulling off those awesome sword moves, that's where the game really shines. Honestly, if you love samurai action, this game is definitely worth checking out.
This moment forth. Thou art arisen. Charge and all.
Dragon's Dogma 2 is an action RPG where you create your own character and explore a huge open world full of monsters, quests, and secrets. It's got a really cool pawn system where you can create companions to fight alongside you and even share them with other players online. The combat is really fun and dynamic. There are lots of different classes and abilities to choose from, and it feels great to take down a giant monster. I loved exploring the world, discovering new locations, and meeting all sorts of interesting characters. The story is pretty engaging too. It's a classic fantasy tale with some interesting twists. If I had to mention a little something negative, maybe the graphics aren't the absolute best, but they're still pretty good. But overall, it's a fantastic RPG, and if you're a fan of open-world games with great combat and a lot of freedom, then I definitely recommend it.